Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee. I'm back after a little delay. I'd like to apologise for that. I'm sure you're all kind of hanging on tenterhooks waiting for me to get back to you. But as is always the way, things got a bit manic over the kind of winter months. And it's only now that I'm starting to get my life back in order. I do apologise. 2017 is going to be a much more organised me. It's already off to a good start. Writing, the script work is through the roof. I've set myself a new, pretty strict goal to be doing this every couple of weeks. You see, look, I can even feel my voice warming up and getting into this. It's one downside of doing a podcast quite so early is that when you finally turn the mic on, after, showering, putting the kettle on, making the coffee, all the important stuff, you realise you haven't actually used your voice yet all morning, and you get that little croak at the back of your throat while you just remember how to engage your vocal cords. It's like one of those weird things, like when you're used to living with people and you're used to working with people, and then you might get one of those rare days where nobody's around. You might just find yourself with 12 hours all to yourself. It does happen on occasion. And you realise you've kind of gone the whole day without talking to each other. Or at least I do. That's clearly my problem. And I just find it interesting that, like, when no one's around, my immediate response is to retreat into my own little routine and stuff. Because obviously I love being around people. But, I think when you have that private time, you're like, for me, that's like, right, I'm going to completely bury myself in writing and nonsense and little jobs that I need doing, because I'm a workaholic and I enjoy doing things. Anyway, I am digressing. I want to share an odd little story about what happens in the mornings around here, because each morning I'm always the first up in the house. That's just how it is. I'm an early riser, always have been. And certainly with my ill health in the last year, when I was on the steroids, they were just playing havoc with my sleep cycle, which was already pretty, gentle to begin with. I mean, we often joke about having being like a binary sleeper. Like, for me, there's no middle ground. I'm either asleep or I'm awake. And so when we go to bed in the evening, I'm always out like a light. It can take Lucy ages to fall asleep. Then when the alarm goes off in the morning, I am bang, just suddenly upright, vertical. I get a standing jump. It's quite impressive, actually. And so getting up in the morning is never an issue for me. And I get up fairly early. So, I go downstairs, I shower, I do all the usual things you do in the morning. I maybe get up, 20 minutes earlier than I technically have to. But for me, that was like an option. That's like an intentional decision. And like I said, I have no problem of actually waking up when I set myself a time to do it. But I just liked having like a few extra moments in the morning to kind of like plan my thoughts and stuff. And because I've started cooking my lunches, because I'm an amazing chef, I'm just exceptional at everything. I've been making these little pasta dishes to take to work with me. And that's really good if you're proactive and decide to do the cooking in the evening. If it's, 7 o'clock in the morning and you're like, damn it, didn't cook. So that gives me like a half hour in the morning to just get that together, do my cooking. I always, give kitchen a little clean each morning because, again, me, workaholic, cleanaholic, scrub the place down. And I'll be honest with you, like, I quite enjoy it. I quite enjoy having that little routine. But anyway, the kind of like long and short is I have a pretty regimented morning. And then, so everything happens to a pretty set routine. So I started to notice like some odd things each morning. And it's amazing what you observe in those early moments, like long before anyone else has woken up. And first one for me was, I got used to hearing a horn somewhere, like a car horn, around the time I finished my shower. And I've got the window open, air the place out. And I would hear a car horn, and it wasn't like a single beep. It was like a proper, someone just pounding the horn, like a good, 4 or 5 successive beeps. But also you're getting that kind of like Doppler effect shifting, where clearly they're not just sitting outside a house, or indeed outside our house, honking their horn, like they're moving. So the first time you hear it, you're like, oh, I don't know what grand drama is going on out there. Maybe this very responsible driver was, a pedestrian stepped into the road. Maybe another car was acting recklessly or something. I don't know. Maybe they were even just impatient. And so you think like, okay, once I'll forgive him. Then it happened again, and for the next few times, I noticed that every weekday there was this horn going off, and it started to become a little obsession of mine, because I was kind of trying to work out who's doing this. And then once I started to like organise my thoughts, maybe get a bit more prepared, I would have a watch to hand, and I realised that every day, Monday to Friday at 6:45, a horn was being beeped. And again, it was always the same. It was always like 4 or 5 proper, someone slamming that horn and speeding by. So, I don't know, I started to think like, this can't be a taxi, like maybe picking someone up. Unless they have a really kind of roundabout, circuitous route for kind of waking, I don't know, maybe they drive around the estate, and when they approach, they honk the horn, gives the person in the house the knowledge that they need to get to the door, then by the time they come around, they're ready. I don't know. It seems like an odd arrangement. So, I don't know. I'm not quite at the stage of like wrapping my head in tinfoil, but I am getting like a little, not paranoid, just kind of, there's something going on here. And I could be the only person who knows. I could be like the only detective awake at this point of the day. So, eventually, a bit of empirical testing, I know that at 6:45, this person will honk their horn. So I'm waiting at the window. Like, you can just about see the road outside. And I'm waiting, and 6:45 is approaching, and then it's 6:45, and 6:45 is kind of ebbing away. And I think, oh, maybe I imagined it. And I look away for a second, and then I hear the horn, and I quickly look back, and I can just see this dark shape of a car kind of just gone. Because we have it's not a busy, well, I don't know, it's not a massive road, but it's a fairly major little passageway by our estate where we live. And, it was enough to realise that, yes, that was the guy. That was the person doing this. And so now I don't know what the next stage is, because my thinking is, if this guy is just kind of just being a bit of a, I'm trying to keep it clean, but just being an idiot. Like, is he just doing this because he hates the people who live here? Like, it's not just us. I mean, there's people on the other side of the road as well. Like, I don't know who he could be doing this to. So I was starting to concoct this slightly elaborate and perhaps, unnecessary scheme to be standing outside the house at 6:45, waiting for this to happen. It's not really practical on a weekday when I'm trying to get ready for work, but, hey, I could have done it today, but instead I'm talking to you. So, the mystery isn't solved, but I don't know, maybe it's a story. But we do get some weird people by the house. I remember, like, late at night, we had the sound of an engine revving, like something terrible, like really just beast of a roar of a mechanical thing. And I remember you hear it once, and you're kind of like trying to sleep, and you're like, oh, just forget about it. Some idiot, your brain isn't fully awake for higher brain functions, which would allow you to do something about this. They're not fully engaged. And it happens again, a second time. You're like, I'm getting a bit silly now. And it's about the third or fourth time where your brain finally goes, oh, okay, I've had enough. So you get up, and so it's me, like, kind of like peering out the windows, trying to work out what's going on. And I kind of look out to that same road, like the same road that goes past our house. And there's a bike. It's a bike. It's like a proper, it looks like a kind of high-end, kind of proper, expensive motorbike. It's not some little kind of dirt track thing. It's like a proper, I don't know, Maserati, is that a thing? I don't know. My dad would be appalled, but I just can't do vehicles at all. And the guy's wearing full kind of motorbike leathers and a helmet. So, he's either, very, very faithful to the motorbike look, or he believes in safety. Because clearly if he's, shooting around the mean streets of Cheltenham at 2 a.m, like, he must be a pretty considerate guy. Or he's trying to hide his identity from the police, I don't know. But he's kind of just, I don't know, is it the collection of rogues near us? I imagine that if you were inclined to be racing cars, you could probably get as good a run as possible in sleepy little Cheltenham as you might do in the area around us. So maybe, he's just being an idiot and he's out late at night kind of gunning his engine, showing himself off. Like, nobody cares. So he's kind of shooting one way past our house and then back the other way past the house. And, I'm just waiting for him to go away. And I'm watching him from the bathroom window because I'm just like, silently kind of like shooting daggers from my eyes. And but then he stops and goes back and forth, and then he comes to a stop at like this little roundabout. And bear in mind, there's not a soul in sight. There's only him and me, this odd voyeur, kind of crouching in the bathroom. And he gets off his bike, and he descends like this little grass bank just behind the road. So he drops out of sight. I think, this is weird. What's he doing? You think 2 a.m, like, why and how? And then a few seconds later, he's not gone long, he returns to the bike and he speaks off, never to be heard again. And it's kind of odd because you find yourself wondering, like, what was going on? Did he just really need a slash or something? And, clearly does the leg of his kind of motorbike onesie have some kind of outlet, a little faucet? Or was it some kind of drug deal? I don't know. You find yourself wondering, like, you could have just agreed to pick something up in that weird little hedge by the road. Also, not long after we moved in, we had the rather alarming thing of, I don't know, if you're going to get woken up by kind of shouting just outside your window, I guess you also don't want that to be coupled with the kind of little neon disco of police lights kind of flashing on the road outside your house. And I remember that woke both me and Lucy up. And I remember we looked out the window and it was a bunch of guys, mostly in their boxers, looking pretty angry. And a police officer and, car with the lights on, just kind of flashing something and trying to, I guess, kind of calm them down. And I think what we found out after the fact, or actually this is me, because bear in mind, like, they are just on the street level outside our house. And clearly the bathroom, the more as I say it out loud, I realise the bathroom is pretty much my kind of vantage point on the world. I'm such a grubby little voyeur. So, me and Lucy are in the bathroom and we can kind of hear this muffled shouting, separated just by a layer of glass. So I reach up and I very quietly open the bathroom window and a kind of sound comes flooding in. And bear in mind, they're like 10 foot away from us at most. And I get the full story in about I think it was after like the races or something. So most people in the town are in a state of drunkenness or a state of slightly regretting being drunk. And it's fairly early in the morning, like it's still dark. And there was a house share just down the road, a bunch of lags. And a guy had decided to try and rob them. I think perhaps picked the worst house you could imagine. And instead of some easy mark, like an elderly lady living alone, he found 4 rather drunk and unimpressed gentlemen who decided to chase him out into the road. And I think they were clearly quite kind of hyped up after that and were just trying to explain themselves to a police officer who, to his credit, was like, guys, please go back inside. We're just kind of like peering down from the window, and a few people are coming out of their houses, and the police officer's doing his best. Scott is turning into like an impromptu street jamboree. Those are more evening stories, and I was meant to be focusing on the morning. Like, my point being is, we seem to just get some weird stuff around the house. So, and aside from like the person honking their horn, I leave the house at like 7:30 every morning. That's pretty set on stone. And like I said, I live a regimented life. This is clearly how I cope with the insanity of the 21st century. But I leave the house at 7:30 to catch a train at 7:46. That's how precise I've got it down. And I walk down a footpath, which is quite a notable footpath in Cheltenham. And notable because it used to be a train line once upon a time. Cheltenham used to have a lot of trains, as it would appear. I think we once had 5 train stations, and I think around the time Dr. Beecham was massively improving the efficiency of our train network, or as the semi-popular British sitcom of the time would suggest, ruining the majesty of our old meandering and incredibly impractical train network. They decided that Cheltenham, being this weird little tourist destination, even then, like it's never been a place of industry. It's always been a place of, hey, we found some smelly water underground, and wouldn't it be great if we all took our top hats for a walk down there for the weekend? They were like, hey, no, 5 train stations, that's a bit much, let's bring it down to just 1. So we're left with all these kind of weird channels and kind of gutters and alleyways kind of crisscrossing Cheltenham. And one, probably the most, I don't want to say renowned, but, is the Honeybourne line, which runs kind of right through Cheltenham. And at one point, if you keep walking the length of it, you are going above the houses. It's like an elevated walkway. It's an old railway bridge, I guess. So yeah, you're peering down on people's houses. And then it's suddenly, it's got a big old bridge, big old white, impressive archway bridge, which is actually needlessly impressive for what it is. And then it dips underground. Well, not underground, but suddenly you're in this kind of gutter, and it's maybe like a mile, if that, down to the train station, and the actual working train station now, I should say. And it's like the world's narrowest, most precisely shaped nature reserve, because, hugging this path, this sunken pathway which used to hide a train, there's a lot of greenery. There's great big green banks on either side. So it's a nice little place. It's also a little odd. It can certainly get dark down there. And I'm quite comfortable walking down there, but I can imagine not everyone would be. In fact, the other day, I was walking back home, and there clearly being some kind of localized power cut, or a circuit being cut or whatever, but all the streetlights were out. And because you're kind of hidden from the general glow of the town around you, it was pretty dark down there. You get the most weird kind of, you get like a super moon on occasion. Like, the moon is not physically 4 times its normal size, because, we're not all being stripped from the surface of the planet by its gravitational pull. But it looks gigantic. And I remember getting off a train, dipping down onto the Honeybourne line, and just something about the angle and, the positioning and the fact we were kind of sunken, looking up, and it was just this kind of narrow window of sky up above us between the trees. And the moon was just gigantic and yellow, like this massive eye just filling the sky. And it was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. But anyway, case in point, digressing massively, but I hope I'm getting the impression across. It's a slightly odd little place. Like, I like it, but weird things seem to happen there. I mean, I once, on my way into work, I managed to walk right through the middle of a crime scene. The police had cordoned off a little section, maybe 3 or 4 different entrances. They'd obviously missed one, because I just went about my regular business, climbed up a flight of stairs. Suddenly I'm on the bridge and I'm surrounded by police tape, and I'm like, can't go that way, turn around, can't go that way. Thankfully there's a police officer there, and I'm like, hey, sorry, didn't mean to walk into this, can I get out? And he's like, oh yeah, of course, off you go. And I think actually, I found out after the fact, I think someone had died, actually, perhaps of natural causes, but I think a jogger had passed away in the morning. But if you carry on down the line, you get to a couple of underpasses. Now, these are, not the prettiest areas of the Honeybourne line. Essentially just two great big concrete wide tunnels that generally smell a little bit like urine and sewage. But they just take you under a road going above you. Anyway, pardon me, I'm just going to pour some more coffee. So you get the lovely Foley. But yeah, there's two of them because the path kind of forms a Y shape, and one way takes you into town and the other takes you, well, doesn't really take you anywhere really, just kind of north of Cheltenham. But these two kind of underpasses have become, I guess, like a little hotbed of graffiti. And it's actually kind of cool. Like I always pay great attention when I'm walking through each morning because the murals change almost daily. Now, like I said, you've got the two underpasses, and I only walk across one of them, under one of them, when I'm going to work. And the one I walk through is mostly, I guess, tags, using the lingo of the street. And it's mostly kind of like just people putting up their names, their initials. There's incredibly stylized pieces of calligraphy where they're getting the name across, but it's so kind of incredibly stylized you can't kind of read it in a weird way, but hey, they look incredible. The colours, it's astounding. Now the other underpass is actually more, I guess, kind of works of art, and they really are impressive, and they don't get kind of replaced very often. So I don't know, because there's lots of different groups doing it, because they keep kind of painting over each other. So I don't know if there's some kind of etiquette here, like they let something kind of stand for enough time. I don't know what the ins and outs of it are. But yeah, they change really regularly. So I'm always looking at this graffiti with great interest. It's like, it's a nice little treat in the mornings, and they're incredibly colourful. Like whoever's doing it, they're good. They're good at what they do. But you kind of have this assumption about the kind of the people who would be doing this, the graffiti artist thing. And I know there's times when I've walked home in the evening, so it's not super late. It's maybe approaching 6 o'clock, and they've been working on them. And it's just because you'd expect, they're all wearing hoodies. It's thick smell of paint. They're kind of working quickly but effectively, because I'm guessing it's still technically illegal. I don't know. I'm not that savvy. I know I have to check in with Sim because you might be listening, but my police officer buddy might be able to inform me whether on the rather obvious question of whether graffitiing is illegal. Because yeah, I'm saying it out loud, and yeah, it's probably illegal. But they're wearing a hoodie, I'm wearing a hoodie, so I'm not judging the hoodie thing. But there's certainly a covert element to it. They're working quickly and just kind of get it done and then get on with it. Another time we came back and I saw a guy. He was kind of he had a hoodie on, but also a little Bluetooth headset I could see, and he was just kind of reporting in an odd way on the graffiti. It was because I think someone had painted over his stuff or his team's stuff, and they were kind of he said team. He said it's Pokemon Go. Yeah, Team Mystic have been tagging the underpass, and that's right, isn't it? I don't know. I never got into it, but yeah. So and he was kind of reporting on it and just kind of muttering under his breath. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. That's certainly what I got. So yeah. So you have this kind of this whole kind of idea about the graffitiing culture. You have these kind of prejudices, and you might imagine that the people would act a certain way. And certainly there's a kind of I got the impression there was a kind of marking your territory kind of thing, and someone would put up their tag and then immediately it would get kind of painted over. But I remember seeing this this really, really cool thing where I was walking down and I noticed that a section of the underpass had been painted white as a base, someone had taken a roller to kind of cover up what was under before. And then they'd clearly begun, but not finished, a new tag, a new mural. And it was interesting to see it at kind of that incomplete state, because it was all kind of outlines and little kind of sketchy, they used a kind of just a plain black kind of spray paint, and it was little lines. It was when Nick's working on the rough pencils for a page, it's all sketchy because it's all fluid. You could change everything, and it was a tag. It was someone's name, And but it was unfinished, and it looked unfinished, looked very unfinished. And my immediate thought as I approached it was, oh, that's not going to last. Because you can imagine, it's like a kind of, you wouldn't leave an unfinished piece of work to kind of mark your territory. I was thinking, like, someone's just going to paint over that in seconds. But, and this is the really, really cool thing, they left a note next to it, like in spray paint, saying, please leave, not finished. It would have been his birthday. And then, like, someone else had written a little note saying, oh yeah, cool man, sorry. And it was suddenly like, this is amazing. Like, I'm seeing behind the curtain. And it's a memorial. Like, I realised that they're making a memorial to someone they knew. And it was like really, like, odd, like really touching, because it's like, it's in this really grotty little underpass. No one would ever think to look for it. It's only going to mean something to like this really select little group of people. But just for a moment, they were like, we're going to do a tribute to someone we lost. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, and there was like this kind of honor among the different groups, because like they hadn't finished it, and they were just saying like, hey, can you just leave it until we do? And then they replied and said, yeah, of course, of course. And it was up there in that unfinished state for a good little while. Like, I think it was maybe a week even before anyone came back to finish it off. And I was getting increasingly worried about it. Like, I would watch it every day, and I was kind of like looking forward to walking through that underpass, because I was like, I can't wait to see this mural finished. And like, I hope it does get finished. Like, I was so worried about someone kind of just, ignoring the etiquette and just kind of like destroying it. And then one day it suddenly was finished, and it was really nice. And it was like, because clearly the chap, as it happens, who passed away, had he must have been a spray painter himself. I'm sorry, that's the most kind of middle class way of describing it. He was a tagger, but he was he must have been part of his crew himself, and he clearly had a tag. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but his tag was Demonics, just DMONIX, and I think they'd recreated his tag, and it was on this white background, and it was really good. It was kind of in blues. It was like, have this kind of like 3D style to it, but it was also slightly kind of almost like pastel-y, so it looked kind of like faded. And then they'd written just and then above it, just in like kind of single line, like the equivalent of like just an artist signing his work with a little spray can, they'd just written in memory of this chap, and I won't say his name, but they wrote his full name, and then they gave his age, and he was born in 1989, the same year as my brother, and he died in 2010. And then a load of people had signed it, and it was really oddly affecting, and kind of using the wonders of Google, because I'm, like I said, I'm a horrible voyeur. I was like, wow, that's like a local guy would have died young. I just found myself thinking like that, and they've written his whole name up, and that must have been in the news. So I did a quick Google search, and yeah, like he was a local chap, and he'd just started college, and he'd gone away to do a summer camp in America, and while on the summer camp, a drunk driver just ploughed into him, and it's just weird. It was just so odd, and it was like this bizarre little story, this little memory to someone I never kind of met, and now never would meet, just kind of painted on the side of a wall in a grotty little concrete underpass in Cheltenham. And it's odd because all the time they were working on it, no one touched it. Like, it was just kind of pristine and preserved. And then when the day it was finished, I noted it, I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of amazing. And then the next day it was gone. And another tag was put over it, full colour, back to usual, and then those tags have been replaced, and and suddenly one side of the entire underpass is an entirely new series of tags I've never seen before, and they're all yellows and purples and greens and oranges, and it's like it never happened now. And at first I was like, oh wow, that seemed like really disrespectful. Like I kind of assumed that memorial would be up there, I don't know, forever. I wasn't really thinking, but no, it was gone. And I was wondering, like, I don't know how it works, like when you do this kind of thing for a living, or you're not for a living, but you know what I mean, when you're involved in that community, maybe like everyone preserved it while it was being made, and then once it was done, it was gone. Because, and maybe that's fine, maybe that's not like an insult to the memory of the guy. Maybe among that community, which is always kind of like refreshing and redoing and kind of like pasting over what was already there, maybe as long as it existed for a moment, that was enough. And now and then it went. So I guess the gesture was more important than that thing, kind of that little memorial living on in perpetuity. But in perpetuity, I can't even speak. But no, it was oddly affecting, and I was very grateful in a really, really bizarre, self-indulgent way. I was really grateful to have been able to see that, and I found it oddly affecting. And yeah, it was cool. And it was just one of those things I would never have seen if I got up a little later. I don't know. So yeah, there we go. Little drama kind of unfolding on the path behind our house, which oddly enough, once again, I can see right this second, the elevated section running behind our house. I can see from the kitchen window right now. And the sun is coming up, which is absolutely lovely, because, yeah, I've been kind of getting up in the dark. I've been leaving work in the dark. I've not seen the sunlight for a little while. And, yeah, it'll be nice to actually bask in it today. Yeah, so, I mean, that's the oddly emotional story of graffiti. But, yeah, like I said, I'm going to be doing these regularly. What is wrong with my face? I can't speak. Regularly from now on. Every 2 weeks. And I'm going to keep up that discipline, because I get up, every other day of the week. I get up super early. Weekends, I kind of treat myself and I lie in till 8 o'clock. Yeah, which is a lie-in for me. That's a massive lie-in. But no, just on every other Friday, I'm going to drag myself out of bed at a regular time. For me, super early. And I'm going to record this, because otherwise I fill up the day with tasks and I don't get around to doing what I should. So yeah, my jobs for today are that I'm staring at them now actually, a small mountain of books. We've got some crates of a reprint of Dying to Tell, book 1 of Afterlife Inc., which I think is like its 8th reprint now. Like it's been, yeah, it's kind of surprising really. You take it for granted, but that baby's been selling pretty well ever since we've been doing this, really. So it's good to have that back in stock, because we ran out towards the tail end of the year. Also looking from the past to the future, Lucy has finished her lettering of the latest chapter of Afterlife Inc. Volume 4, Man Made God. Bit of a mouthful. So if you are one of our Kickstarter backers, you will be receiving your digital download link. If not today, then also today. Yeah, I'll do it today, basically. And got to sort out this stock. Got to take it across to our storeroom. I need to pick up convention stuff for the True Believers Comic-Con, which is happening tomorrow. Cheltenham's very own True Believers. It's happening up at the racecourse. Just occurs to me that our Afterlife Inc. banner tore itself in half at the last show we did in Birmingham in November, and I have yet to get a replacement. So it's fine. We shall have to live without it for one show. True Believers is very much like a gentle way to ease ourselves into the year. It's a slightly smaller show, so I think we can maybe survive without a banner for one day. And yeah, and then also we have the joy of having to do our company finances this afternoon, because Big Punch Studios is a limited company, which is sounds more impressive than it is, but we've been trading as a company for a couple of years now, and we're now at the point where we have to submit our first company's finance report, I guess. Lucy's our kind of business master, so I keep track of the finances and she keeps us square with the government, and we're going to sit down and I'm going to pull up my figures and she's going to tell us what we need, and we're just going to submit this thing. So yeah, it's going to be a busy old weekend with the convention, some tasks. Oh, and I'm getting a haircut. I've got to tame the fro. And yeah, we're seeing another wedding venue on Sunday because, hey, we foolishly decided to get married, and that is already proving to be a bit of a headache because it's a cliche, but it seems as though the moment you start planning a wedding, regardless of how simple you want to keep it, things suddenly start escalating and becoming a problem. So Sunday morning, we're going to go see another wedding venue. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me ramble on in the morning, as has become my want. We're going to be doing this properly now every couple of weeks. And yeah, I'd just like to close off by saying, if you're listening to this and you're enjoying not just Morning Coffee, but all our Big Punch podcasts, because we do put out a moderate amount of podcasts, and we do seem to have a moderate and lovely audience like you guys. I don't want to be a shill, but I feel I have to say it. We have just massively overhauled our Patreon page, and if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you enjoy what we do. Maybe you enjoy our podcasts. Maybe, you love our comics. Maybe you love our games. And perhaps if you enjoy what we do, you might want to consider backing us on Patreon, because your support just helps us keep doing what we do. It helps make all of this possible. It's the Afterlife Inc., it's the 7-String, it's Catmarang, it's all the titles we do in Extraversal, it's our games. You make it possible. And, if you just enjoy the podcasts, maybe even just giving us $1 a month would make all the difference. But please have a look at the Patreon page. That's www.patreon.com/Big Punch Studios. Like I said, $1 a month will get you a free download of all our podcasts. Not to mention access to the Punchcast, which is a very exclusive podcast which we record just for our patrons. It's only $1 a month, and it really could just transform the way we make comics and games and podcasts. So thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed this little message from an early morning person. Like I said, I'm working on some slogans. It'd be nice to have like a way to sign in, a way to sign out. But thanks for listening, guys. Enjoy your coffee, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.